Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I am just so pleased to be back here again with you today. I'm always feeling blessed just to be in your presence. I thank God for this opportunity because I tell you that it is so necessary for us to sort of disseminate information, the kind that I'm talking about, that's going to restore us back to our greatness. I thank God for that. I get for allowing me at this stage of my life to come to you and to present you with what I know, what little I know. I want to thank my crew here. I want to thank Norm, this great man here, for allowing me the space. And of course, I want to thank my assistants, uh, Lula, Sheila, Juanita, and of course my little ones, Elijah and Halim, for they do the Elijah and Elaine are young men who do the promo for me. So when you hear me asking you to come on watch my show, they are the one that producing that, and I just want to thank them for that. It's just such a pleasure to be here. Now, this podcast, more than anything else, is to disseminate information that will lead us to the knowledge of what, to who, and how we can restore ourselves to greatness. I'm not suggesting anything different than what others have done to get them through their situation. Oh, yeah, there are structures in place for others who have gone through trauma, just not for us. One reason is because there is no prototype for what happening to us. Ours is a unique situation, unparalleled to anything that has happened in the history of this world. Think about it. There has been slavery. Yeah, still is slavery, but nothing compared to what we experienced. I cannot stress that enough. So, therefore, what we went through should be redefined to fit the slaughter, the total ripping of our humanity, our language, our religion, our music, our history, our culture. What other group compared? Tell me. Then if not, now if that doesn't happen with other people, then why do we name it the same? A name more befitting the action should be put forth. Now, the closest thing I've heard of is a term called ma'afa, put forth by a sister named Mariana. And then there is genocide, of course, certainly specific for our situation. We need a term special to encapsulate our whole situation. We need to take us seriously. Let me just tell you how other people take things seriously. Now, in the news about a week or so ago, there was an incident with some dogs being mistreated, being abused. And it was sad. I like dogs. I like animals. The abuse was done near a school. The children saw it and was traumatized. So the authorities, the analysts, they help mental health people, decided to help the children as they should have. They knew it would personally damage them in some way. Now think about it with our situation, our experience, all the hanging from the trees, the raping of our females and our males, the indiscriminate murders, the humiliation. Oh, it can get gruesome. And our ancestor was not even allowed to cry. Thus, the title of my book, Why Shouldn't I Cry, begs the question. Remember my book, Why Shouldn't I Cry? We were not allowed to cry. I have the information. I know the history, but we need those who have studied in depth our history from the beginning, in between to now. Therefore, we must, number one, identify the situation, genocide, ma'afa, something other than just, quote, slavery. that does not identify our experience. And until that happens, we will continue to be thrown in with uh, the rest of humanity and have gone through the trauma that who have not gone through the trauma we have. Number two, we need to study and analyze the problem. If we have been left with unspeakable trauma, that is disproportionality behind everyone else in health, wealth, and education, something must have happened. And number three, develop and suggest remedies for the restoration of us as Africans. Now, we do know that there are things that we need. Reparation is at the top of the list as far as this amateur is concerned, because reparation will enable us to control all that we need to get us back on track. I believe that will put us in a position to execute all the things we need to do to reverse the damage. My idea of reparation is not just money, though. Not just money alone, because if you get the money and have nowhere to spend it except back to those who have all the goods and services, you are back to ground zero. In addition to the money, reparation in terms of goods and services. That's what I think. Free schooling, free housing, free medical attention. That's not impossible. It's been done before, you know. Other groups have done it. But for now, we're going to get my guest in here. We're going to talk about that later, but we're going to get my guest in here who has a wealth of information, lest we perish for lack of it. That is scripture, you know. Now, we have Miss Betty Dobson. Now, I don't tell age. Age is just a number, and mine is unlisted. But I think she tells hers proudly. She wrote the book, Shared Secrets of Elder Sisters. In addition, Sister Betty and her co-founder, Dr. James McIntosh, created an organization called CEMOTAP, the Committee to Eliminate Media Offensive Toward African People. I'm just going to give you an instant when I saw that concept manifested.
Boys.
All of you, most of you, I'll say many of you, have heard of Dr. Henry L. Gates.
Okay, all right.
Professor at Princeton University, who has done great work in the exposure of our African past. But even our best can be hoodwinked. How many of you watched his program? I'm not sure what the name of the program now, but he has a program on Africa and what he's done over there and how he's documented. Well, Dr. Gates was awarded a tremendous grant some years back to do a documentary of Africa. Well, he did. When he came back and showed it on CBS, PBS, of course, I watched it. I had never seen Africa so beautifully done, so I was mesmerized. So much so I overlooked the hidden agenda. I was so excited that I called my dear sister Betty. I always call Betty when I want to get the real deal. I noticed right away she wasn't so enthused. I said, Betty, did you watch the documentary by Dr. Gates? She said, yeah. We just got back from demonstrating in front of his house. I said, oh, Dr. Gates? His home in Massachusetts? But why? She said the documentary is designed to make the African complicit in their enslavement. You know, I had felt that a little bit when I saw the piece, but it was a visceral feeling behind it. But I was so blinded by the overall beauty of the piece that I just allowed that to sort of, escape me. But that's not what CEMOTAP, Betty's organization, does. They are constantly on the watch for any suggestion that might disparage the African people. That's just one incident. But that's the kind of media manipulation they are constantly on the watch for. And I'm going to tell you about another incident when I traveled with Betty's group to Africa, but I'm going to bring in Betty right now. Welcome, my sister. So glad to see you here by Zoom, of course. Betty is out of Ohio. How are you, Betty?
Doing fine, thank you. And how are you, Ruby?
I am doing real good now that I see you here, looking good, looking pretty, looking angelic. I'm just so glad you were able to come. Now, Betty invited me to a teleconference last week. Her guest was the phenomenon Dr. LaFrancis Rogers Rose, the renowned sociologist and founder and CEO of the International Black Woman Congress. And when I asked Betty to be a guest on my podcast, I was so pleased she accepted because I know of her work and how important it would be for me to get her on and share her knowledge with my audience. I'm going to read your bio, Betty, and then we will talk. Now, you got a lengthy bio, so I'm going to read some of it.
Right, yeah,
Just some
just
of it.
some, very little of it.
Okay. Betty J. Dobson. Uh, Betty J. Dobson's two careers and life mission enabled her to have significant positive impact on both children and adults for decades, serving as the public relations director at Harlem Hospital Center for 15 years, helped develop her ironcast understanding and belief that racist media was and still is a major contributor to America's foul capitalism and sick ideas of white supremacy. In 1987, while still at Harlem Hospital, she collaborated with resident James McIntosh to develop Simotap, the Committee to Eliminate Media Offenses to African People, which continues to operate to this day. Her second career as director of the Southern Queens Beacon School at JHS number 8 enabled her to create a school that served both children and adults. The Southern Queen Beacon School at Junior High number 8 in Southern Queens was a new concept in education, created and funded by Mayor David Dinkin. For 13 years, she was able to create and run a community-based school that focused specifically on Southeast Queens educational and social needs. The school had the vision and courage to embrace an Afrocentric curriculum, and created strong relationships with the surrounding community. Today, Simotep operates as a financially independent African media watch that owns its own headquarters there in Queens, challenging racist content in both electronic, print, and digital media is at the core of the successful operation. Over the years, Simotep assists activists and political prisoners, holds STEM classes for students, conducts a travel club, and provides food to members who need assistance. Never seeking nor accepting grants or assistance from outside the black community, Simotep had existed solely from the generation of the black community. Now, you hear you. If I knew how to turn that on, I would give a clap to you. I tell you, that's fantastic, Betty. And I have some questions for you, my lady. How did Simotep first come about?
You mentioned, Ruby, that I was working at Harlem Hospital, and at the time, there was a lot of violence in Harlem because, drugs were being imported and guns and what have you. So there was a lot of unnecessary violence. And there was a reporter, Geraldo Rivera.
Mm-hmm.
He decided that he was going to make a career and that he was going to Oh, this phone is ringing. Oh, let me just turn it off. Okay. Uh, he decided he was going to, promote his career by filming black violence. So WABC gave him gave him a group of photographers to follow him around, and so he would come on Saturday and Friday and Sunday evenings. He'd park himself right outside the emergency room, and when the ambulances would come, he would leap out, put a microphone in front of the injured person. Who shot you? Who cut you? Where were you? And the person's nearly dead. So to myself, this I'm not, in charge of the hospital, but I am in charge of public relations. This has got to stop. So I went to, at that time, the black director of Harlem Hospital, and he wasn't a very conscious brother. He had a good paying job, and white folks liked him, so he didn't want to rock the boat. But I said, well, I got to do something.
I know the
And
kind.
so a young woman asked me to hold a meeting to talk about how horrible media was towards us. And so at the meeting, Utrice Lead, who now is not well, she's in,
Oh, bless her
not good
heart.
shape at all.
Great
She said,
lady.
Betty, why don't you just do something? Don't just complain. I said, you're absolutely right. So I called together 6 or 7 of my friends, and we decided that we were going to establish a way to confront violence that is being misrepresented as that's all black folks are about. We were going to change that misrepresentation, and we were going to do it using our own intelligence, our own people, and our own those things that were available to us to use, which weren't that many. And so that's when we decided to name it the CMOTAP, Committee to Eliminate Media Offensive to African People. 36
Mm-hmm.
years. I was a
Mm-hmm.
young woman back then, Ruby.
Still
36
young. Hey,
years
tell you
ago,
about it.
uh,
We're gonna talk about
we
that later,
started.
age thing. Now, what are you most proud of vis-a-vis your group? I know you're proud of everything. You all got that building there in Queens. I'm just so it's a museum. It's an art gallery, really.
I'm glad you mentioned
African. Mm-hmm.
the building, excuse me, because the thing that I am most proud of is we have shown Black people you don't have to have a huge building or a lot of people or, a lot of funds, money to fight that is being injurious to your people. You can do it from your home. You can do it from a small building. You can do it from your church, but you must do it. So I think the most important role that we had, in my mind, is that we showed Black people don't be confused, do not be intimidated by white folks and their media. You know who you are, and you must fight for who you are. Never mind the fact that WABC TV's paying Geraldo Rivera to come and sit outside Harlem Hospital and misrepresent us, misrepresent the hospital, misrepresent the injured person, because everybody that was injured was not of a criminal nature. So this man was doing such terrible things to our image, and we decided 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and then six more joined. Six more joined. We ended up 1,000 people
Oh
who
wow.
said, "I agree with you," and they helped us to establish the small building that we have, and that is why we can stay there as long as we want. We can talk about what we want in the building, and we allow other organizations that are doing something that we feel is Afrocentric and helpful, that we allow them to use the building as well.
Excellent. Very good. Getting back to image, I was just going to go back to Dr. Gates for a minute. Um, what happens with image sometimes if other folks are determining the the language, the narrative, and in his case, when he came back and not implied, sort of surmised that African was responsible for their own enslavement. That's sort of an outlier type of situation because every group there is has someone in that group that may be an outlier, that may a turncoat, or be whatever the case may be. But it seems that they want to let us believe that it was only in during our serious situation where maybe some of our people. That's why I want to change and redefine that word because slavery shouldn't be defined by what we all everybody else is doing. What we went through was so unparalleled to anything anyone else. So it wasn't even really slavery, it was genocide. The same as the Jews have adopted a word for themselves and what they went through, we should do the same because at least we get trapped by what folks like that particular documentary would imply. Now, I'm sure if we had done any kind of research, and we have, many of us know, there are folks in the Jewish community who betrayed them. There was in the Indian community who betrayed them. There was in the Japanese community in Pearl Harbor who betrayed them. Those are outliers. Now, I'm sure 100 years down the road, someone's going to say, Clarence Thomas is indicative of what all black folks were thinking at the time. That's why we got to keep it real. That's why I'm so appreciative of your organization that will look at the little thing because I was so involved with trying. Oh, I was so pleased, so excited. But you saw the underpinning of what that documentary would have implied. At least you all went there and demonstrated against the great brother. And he's doing much better now because I watched some of his programs. I'm not sure if he's doing 100%, but I know you probably have instilled in him the notion that you all would be at his door at some point. Now, what is the group's latest endeavor?
I want to, if you don't mind, Ruby, I would like to let you know that Henry Skip the Truth Gates is not an Afrocentric man. He is an English teacher. White folks at Harvard decided that they would push him and take his behind over to Africa, and he would get people to apologize. Africans
Mm-hmm.
living, a very sparse life, and
Mm-hmm.
they're apologizing for selling their brothers and sisters into slavery. He had his facts all mixed up and wrong
Well,
because
don't you think that's
Dr.
part of
Leonard
what
Jeffries
you're right? Don't you think
is.
though that's part of what my group is trying to do now, disseminate information that could to correct all that? See, sometimes we think that our people, because of their status wherever, that they know what they know, but they really don't, and it's no fault of their own. I tell you another brother whom I love dearly, and all of us do. I know our former president Obama. What was the group he established? My brother's keeper. A lot of young black people were a little bit offended, although they loved him, didn't want to criticize, but they were offended, didn't know why. But he was no fault of his own. He is not the quote expert I'm talking about. It's a good example of what I'm trying to show people when I talk about expert. I don't just mean expert in what you're doing. I mean in Africanism. You got to be in depth there for me to consider you know exactly what you're talking about because they mean no harm. I'm sure many of them don't. I know President Obama really didn't. They brought him out, picked him up. But have you ever seen anybody pick a white president out to make that kind of decision or commitment about white folks when they were in need of attention after World War One or two? Did they go get the president to decide what they needed? No, 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 no. They got the expert. They got the sociologists. They got the mental people. They got all those folks who could find what they needed. They needed the homes. They had free housing. They had free education. They had free this, free that. And then they went to the president to get the money to afford that. But they went to Obama to decide how to give a critique of who we were after 400 years of slavery. But that was not his responsibility. Same as with Gates. He may think, he's an educator, he has his credentials, but not in Africanism, which would have told him that what he brought back was an attempt to demonize the whole group of Africans who did no more than any other group. That was just the outlier in that particular group that might have done that. You know?
I'm not, yes, I'm not finished with Skip the Truth Gates yet because he is having, these programs where people find out who their ancestors are and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
You will find Black folks who find that they have white blood, but you are not going to find very many white folks. They're going to say that they have African blood,
Mm-hmm.
and Skip Gates is one of them. When we had an appointment. We got an appointment with his boss for him to meet with us. We didn't go there to attack him. We want to go there and sit and talk and understand. Why would you go to Africa and ask people who had nothing to do with the transatlantic slave trade? Why would you ask them to apologize for something that white folks did? Maybe you have a reason. We didn't know. But he wouldn't meet with us. He ran down the back steps and went somewhere and hid. And we tried to meet with him later. Finally gave up because we said we can't do anything with him. And his wife left, and we felt sorry for him. So we said we'll do something else with our energy. But I can say that those programs that he has, where he investigates who you're married to or who is your uncle's cousin or whatever. Oh, okay, fine. That's a program. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. Be careful in having your ancestry examined and having your blood type looked into, because further down the pipe, Betty Dobson is a believer that they are working on ways to annihilate certain blood types, black blood types at that. I could be wrong, but this is how I feel. So go get that Bible that your grandparents wrote everything in. Talk to the elders. See, they have this society has separated us from our young people, but we have stories to tell them to help them to understand why they are where they are and what is possible for them.
Okay.
So I'm not going to blame everything on Skip the Gates
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
truth,
Yeah.
but I will
Take
say
it to the
that
head.
he is not an expert in anything except being a turncoat
Oh.
in my estimation.
Oh my
He might be a
estimation.
great person to others, but to Betty Dobson, he is not.
Okay, I understand that too. Now, Betty, you wrote a
Yes,
book, and your
yes.
book is called Shared Secrets of Elders. What motivated you to do that after you've done all this other stuff?
Well, I found that Black women do not feel loved, do not feel, do not engender the type of attention that they want from the brothers. They're not feeling as if they are the fulfilled woman that they were born to be. And that age factor is very much involved in it. It's a matter of trying to stay young when you're no longer young, and you can't be young forever. You're only young until you're 25. After that, you're on the other side. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I try to tell sisters, be grateful to God for giving you this time on this earth. When you're 60, 70, 80, 90, be grateful because your ancestors made it possible for you to be the person who lived to be 60, 70, 80, 90. Now, I tell my age and I'm proud of it. I don't let nobody tell me I'm 89 years young. No, I am 89 years old, proud of it. Don't want anybody to ever tell me that being old is a disease. It is a
Mm-mm.
blessing.
Mm-mm.
And Black women have got to discard this foolishness. And Ruby, this is all you called for opinion, and you're gonna
Yeah.
get opinion. So I
You know,
guess you
Betty,
know that.
you know what? This, seriously, this, I thank God every time I'm come on this show because I say this is about the only space where age serves as welcome. You know, someone must have read the scripture, Job 12:12, that says wisdom belongs to the age. And in our situation, Betty, we need wisdom because one thing that wisdom does is enlighten one of things you don't know. That's why I call myself an unapologetic amateur in the area of knowing how to get us back on track to our greatness, free from the trauma of our existence. And wisdom gives you that. But one of the things I say about the age situation in this society, it is so demonized. That's why most people are not afraid or ashamed. It's just that they know it's a negative toward what they're trying to do or trying to get. And I thank God every day for bringing me in at this stage of my life into this area where people are welcoming me and my ideas and what knowledge I have to impart. So we're in a good space, Betty. We are in a good space.
We're in a great space, and we can all be in a better space.
Hmm.
We cannot allow ourselves to fall for this white folks nonsense about you got to remain thin and white
Right.
and blonde and young until you're 150
Well,
years old.
in
That's
Africa,
nonsense.
they revere. Africa revere our age. When we went over the time, we're gonna talk about that later.
Absolutely.
They met us at the airport, didn't they?
That's
Saluted to
right.
us, and oh my goodness. So, what are some of the elders you talk about in your book? You write about?
Well, I tried to get a mixture of elders who were just still so very active and who had so much more to give and who were not hanging on to this nonsense about looking young and being young and sexy and all that stuff. They were more concerned with looking good, feeling good, and providing good information. I'll start with Dr. Adelaide Sanford. Dr. Sanford was let me just turn this off. Everybody's calling me Ruby, and I
Wow,
guess I don't
that's
know
your
what this is all
popular
about.
lady.
Uh, no, okay.
Hmm.
Um, she is 94. No, no,
Mm.
she isn't. No, she isn't. She's 96,
Oh
going on
wow.
97.
Mm-hmm.
Just finished writing a book.
Okay.
Of course, she has outlived her mate, her husband. Still has a mind like a steel trap, which most of us don't. Her
Mm-hmm.
memory is impeccable as she faces 100.
Oh my.
Her wisdom is so profound that if we could take every Black youngster alive and put them in her presence for at least a week, they'd be a changed individual. They'd
Mm-hmm.
be their vision for their own lives would be so different. She's an educator, a former New York State regent, a person who she and her husband purchased a beautiful building on Convent Avenue in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the Dr. John Henry Clark House. I
Oh.
believe it is the only such structure in the United States and beyond.
Okay.
We purchased it 30 some years ago, still own it. Had to close down a little bit during COVID, but we're getting ready. We're in the process now of reopening and bringing the African life and ideals and the things that keep us strong. We're going to be back doing that very, very soon. I'm one of the founding members of the Dr. John Henry Clark House.
Excellent. Speaking of similar, I am a member. Now, Betty, you were talking about Dr. Sanford. I just remembered she went on this African trip with us. I got to talk a little bit about that because I want you to expound upon this incident that happened. Y'all, Betty is too much. I tell you, we were all the way in Africa. East Africa. We had done some things there, but then we was in South Africa, right, Betty? And
Yeah,
we
South
got
Africa.
there, or we all came out of our hotel ready to go on this tour, and we got on the bus, and I was in the mid section of the bus, and we sat there, not too far from Betty, but I didn't want to disturb because I saw them being, engaged in something, and it just went on to minutes, the hour, and we looked around, and finally I asked Betty, "What's happening? Is something wrong?" She said, "Well, yeah, we're waiting for a tour guide." And I'm looking at the seat. There was someone sitting in the seat, and I'm thinking, well, maybe the tour guide was going to be the expert person to come on the bus to show us the scenery. But then, just at that time, someone came up. Then it was the person that was going to take over the one that was sitting in the seat. He got up and left, and Betty got up and told the group we had to wait here because we didn't come all the way from America to our homeland that we have never set foot in before, to be confronted with a white tour guide. Betty, speak your language, what you told her, because I can't remember. It was just so enlightening. We just all a sigh of just total relief because it was so beautiful. The way that you all pulled that thing off, you just would not allow this person to take on a tour of where we have sacrificed so much to get over there, and going to allow a tour guide to show us our Africa. You talk
Well,
about it.
I'd love to tell the story
Hmm.
because maybe more of us will do something like this in the
Yeah.
future. We were scheduled to go and visit where President Nelson Mandela was born, and then we were going to go there. Oh, it was during the whole tour, and I got off the bus and I said to Dr. Sanford, we're not moving. She said, Betty, we can't get on that bus. She said, we can't let a white man who has been so terrible to the black citizens of South Africa. He's going to take us on a tour. She said, it can't be. I said, you're absolutely right. I went over and I said, excuse me, sir. I have to make an announcement. I have to tell you, you are not going to take us on this trip. We are demanding that we have a black driver. I saw his neck, getting red and going up his face. I said, we came from America. We came to visit places that have meaning for us. And if we allow you to take there, we lose all the meaning for the sacrifices that we have made. So we will all depart. We will get off of this bus, said to all our travelers, let us get off the bus. Everybody jumped up at once, and we just simply marched off the bus back into the hotel to tell the people there that they had to find a black bus driver, a black tour guide for us, or we weren't going on this tour that we had paid for. Well,
Hmm.
you talk about scrambling and doing all kinds of things, but here's the thing. It turns out that the drivers, they have a particular site where they sit and wait to be called to take people on these tours. And the black bus driver told us that he had been sitting there all day and that this one that they had assigned to drive us, he had had different jobs earlier and had made money. And there he was sitting, hoping that someone would decide to use him as the bus driver.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me tell you something. This news went around Soweto like a gust of a hurricane.
I can
The
imagine.
the newspapers, the TVs, the radios, everyone wanted to interview us, but unfortunately we were leaving the next day, so we
Yeah.
did not participate in that. But we did not allow that Bora to
Yeah.
take us anywhere. He had to get off the bus. Ruby, I'm trying to keep
I'll keep it
I
real.
want I want your podcast to maintain a certain level of dignity. So Betty Dox
anything,
is gonna
anything
go.
you say, Betty, would be dignified. I just want to
Uh,
welcome our guests in here, Tiffany Barker. Oh, you're a beautiful lady. I was on her show last week, Betty, and she is terrific. You got to watch it. I got to give it to you when you get back there. Tiffany, I just love you. Rashida Johnson, oh, my niece, I just love you too. And Jafar, my nephew, look at that. My family just supporting me. I am appreciating all of you here. I see Sheila watching. I see Lula watching. Robert, I know you'll be watching. That's my brother-in-law. Giselle, that's my sister-in-law. Sheila. Daryl. He's got a lot of African stuff. He just goes over all the time, Betty. Nakia, Owen, Tiffany Barker, Rose Cabbage Stock again. Just love y'all. Y'all just keep watching. Betty, I am so moved.
Dr. James McIntyre said he couldn't get through.
Is
He's
that what
been
he's?
trying to get. He said he
Why?
couldn't get through. That's one
Really?
of these phone calls. Yes.
Oh my goodness! I don't know why, but we certainly want him through.
Mhm.
Betty, are you working on more books?
You know what, Ruby? you have to move with the times,
Mhm.
and you can't. I believe that you can do if you can do one thing well, you can do many things well,
Mhm.
and that's for all of us.
Yes.
So I started a book about my family, particularly my father, who had to escape from Leesburg, Georgia, with his life, and ended up in Philadelphia with nothing but the clothes on his back, which were rags. And he would tell us over and over stories of how he survived. But when I moved back to Ohio, I said, I did a play. I wrote a play, um, and it ran for quite a while at the Black Spectrum Theater. And I said, gee, I like this.
Mhm.
So I said, I'm gonna write another one. But meanwhile, um, I moved back to Ohio, where I am now,
Mhm.
because the cost of living in New York was just going to send me, straight to the poorhouse. So
Mhm.
I said, let me get out of New York and move
Mhm.
back to where I grew up in the sticks of Ohio, and I did. And then I had to reinvent myself, Ruby. And this is a lesson to older women. If you move into a section, take something with you. Be able to show folks what you have done or what you can do. Because nobody wants be bothering an old lady. She just coming back there to be a pest and ask them to do things. You got to be there, able to do something for others. And it
Mhm.
has to have some meaning. And so I said, I'm going to write a play. Now, I came back. My sister was not well. Her husband was not well. And apparently my brother too. So I wrote this play, um, and I selected the cast myself, and I was all in the whole process. And in doing so, I made some young friends because
Yeah.
my friends are all dead or halfway dead. So I made some young friends. I got involved in the church, and
Man, I got
I
to
let
just
folks
maintain a
know
delivery. Oh my goodness, Betty, you got me all.
what. Well, I'll continue with you. So,
I'm going to read
uh,
my guest. Rashida, I love you. Javon said, awesome guest and great subject, Auntie. And Juanita said, she's real. Let me say. Somebody else said, beautiful. Let me run it down. I can't see. I want to see what my guests are saying. Okay. All right. Keep on, Betty. I just want to
okay,
recognize my
like
guests.
you,
They're
Ruby,
really
you.
enjoying you. I tell you. You just getting
Oh,
me all
well,
broken up here.
my brother
Oh.
told me that he wasn't going to let nobody put him in a rocking chair
Hmm.
with a glass of warm buttermilk because he was going to take his bike and he was going to bike his way all the way to South Carolina and back. And he was 89.
Yeah.
So I said, go to it, brother. You still alive. You know what I mean? You can still see, feel, talk,
Uh
walk.
huh.
So, go to it. And so
I
um,
can't.
when I got there, I said,
I know, but I want
I'm
to
going to
see.
write a play. And I did.
I
And
want to
I
read
loved
mine.
it. And I made friends. And then I got involved with others here that are
Mm-hmm.
writing plays. And
Mm-hmm.
then I joined an African history class. And I see all this was reinventing myself as an old lady, not just, going to the rocking chair and complaining about every doggone thing that everybody else is
Mm-hmm.
doing. Of
Well,
course,
God
I do
has
my
plan.
share.
Well,
Yeah,
the
I
Lord
do.
has plans
Yes.
for us, and we sometimes don't know them myself. I know He put me in
Oh,
this position
yes.
for a reason.
Yes.
I didn't sit around here and wait at this stage of my life to become a
No,
podcast
no, you
host.
have things to
No, but
do.
He knows
Now,
that I need to impart the information, lest we suffer
well,
for lack, perish for
I don't know
lack of
why,
the
but Ruby,
information.
I don't know why you calling yourself amateur.
No,
You are not an amateur, you're a
yeah.
leader.
Well,
And
my
I'm
son
not
said the
trying to
truth is
rename your show,
sometimes
but I'm just telling you.
uncomfortable. Lord said the truth is sometimes uncomfortable. And Rose said blessings family. Tiffany Parker with all the hearts, I tell you, and Sheila Brown is watching. All right. Okay. Betty,
Okay.
what
Yes,
you were
audience.
just telling me what you're doing now. I didn't really know you were such a playwright. I mean, I know you've done a whole lot of things, but I didn't know you were such a playwright.
Well, I didn't know it either. I'm telling you the truth. It was standing room only, and it was a comedy. So I said,
Okay.
I must have a little, gift for that. And so the
Hmm.
good Lord has given me the gift for comedy, and so
You
I
made
am
me laugh
now
just
writing.
now. I don't know. I just broke all up, and the other one, and my producers over here can't control themselves.
Well,
Oh,
um, I'm
oh
glad to be
my
a guest
goodness!
on your
And I
program,
am
and
so
I hope I
pleased.
can be an inspiration to some young women.
Oh,
And let me
you
tell you
can.
something: a man, girls, women, young women, men aren't necessarily looking for the youngest woman that they can find because when they're young, they don't know anything anyhow. So they're looking for a whole woman who knows how to be a woman, knows how to do the things that women are supposed to do. They ain't worried about the fact that you're over 40. That's insignificant. Now, this is just me talking, but this is my experience. At this age, be 90 in a minute, I still got trying to give me the eye. I tell one brother, I'm old enough to be your grandma, honey. Uh, so,
You
he,
work it,
he's
Betty. You work it. Now, you can enjoy this program. You listen to Betty. I got some great guests coming forward and coming on. I got to go on her show again. But you can enjoy this program by listening to BKS One Radio or seeing me in person on Facebook or YouTube. You can bless this program by sending a donation to Cash App $ Ruby Shivers, Zelle, Ruby Shivers 158 at gmail.com. I tell you, this has been one enjoyable show. Betty, what do you
yes.
suggest might move us forward as we try to reinvent ourselves or try to regain some of what has been taken away from us? Because as I said before, my show here is basically to impart information. And I call myself an amateur in terms of what I have borrowed, Africanism. See, we can be an expert in a whole lot of things, and I make comparison every time I come on my show just to make sure people understand what I mean by the phrase, I mean the concept, unapologetic amateur versus expert. I mean, is expert in the arena of Africanism, as you would. Someone said to me the other day, a nice young man that I respect highly. I love his. I'm impressed with his scholarship, but he said to me, "All we need to know is our history." I said, "No, no, no. I don't think so. You know how I am about history. I want that." I said, "But I know the history of the virus. I do know about the plagues and all that kind. I know a little bit of the history, but no one has ever come to me to try to make me create a cure for it. That's what I'm talking about. Our situation is as deep as that plague or deeper. We have something that had come over us over 400 years that no other human being on the annals of history have experienced. So we obviously need someone who, like that a virologist or the epidemiologist, have gone to study extensively about what happened to us, where we were as the greatest of all things, the greatest this, the greatest that. We did the pyramids, we descendants of Jesus Christ, we greatest scientists, whatever, whatever, to where we are now. Something had to have happened. And we know, like the doctor, what's her name, post traumatic slave syndrome, Dr. DeGroot, said something happened between, there was syndromes that was developed from our living habit, our eating habit, what they did to us mentally, physically. So we got to get experts who can put all that together, not only know the
Yep.
history,
Hmm.
but then come up with the cures, like the virologist, come up with a cure to keep us, to rescue us and put us back to where we belong. I can't do that. I can know the history. I can come here every Monday and try to impart the information that have been given to me that I know. Now, are we going to need our other folks who we in depth can get together and figure out, the same as any other group who have gone through trauma, that there must be something in someone we need other than just something happened to us, we grab Kanye West, we grab Clarence
Oh
Thomas, we
God,
grab we
Andre,
gra-
oh, please.
we
Mm.
grab the sports figure, we grab athletes, we grab anyone who's famous to talk about us, and they mean no harm, but they don't know. They're innocently naive, that they don't know the depth of what happened to us and what the results of it. I got a young man coming on next week. Oh wow, excuse me, but I just met him. So he's the brother of my co-host from last week, Dr. Kenyatta, but he's a mental health expert. So he's part of the ones that I'm trying to bring on to deal with the mental illnesses that was created out of all that craziness that went on. I told you about the incident with the dog that was being abused, and they've got the children, and they brought mental health people in to help them work through it. Because, see, they know that when you deal with a person's mind like that, there something happens. And over 200 years, with us seeing our people hang from trees, our mothers cut bellies right open to bring the baby out, and for them to murder our people, Ku Klux Klan's coming at our door. My pastor, who I'm trying to get on here to give us more history of what I'm trying to explain, he talked about a study that was done. I had never heard the word. I don't know if you heard weathering, but he talked about the word called weathering. It's when he used the patrol stop as an example. When the black person, a particular black man, sees a patrol car 12 o'clock at night behind him with the lights going, that does something to you. You know, affect your brain, affect your mind, affect your heart, affect everything.
That not
So,
just a young man, it affects mine. This
right, I'm
happens to
saying
me.
men, women, any black
Just all
person.
of us.
Right, any black person. So it's called weathering. So the same as they did a study, it showed why our our health was different from white folks' health because of a little something like that. Not a little something, but that's the kind of thing I'm trying to impress upon people when I say expert, someone who has studied in depth what that stuff have done to us over 200 years, never mind the additional 200 years of slavery, I mean of racism and the discrimination and continued racism. So that's what I'm talking about. We got those out there. You know we do, Betty. We have those folks who have studied in depth and out, the Dr. John Henry Clarks of the world and the Jeffries of the world, who have done the extra step in trying to figure out how then to redeem us. You know, we know, some of us know what happened, but now what it takes to redeem us. Now, uh, I know you got something coming up. That's in some.
Yes, we're after a 3 year
Mm-hmm,
hiatus because of COVID.
mm-hmm,
We were not meeting in our building and having our regular sessions with the African icons that we usually interact with.
mm-hmm,
So on the 18th of November, we're reopening we're having a grand reopening. Tony Browder and Dr. Mayat, and there's a bunch of PhDs have decided that they were going to become musicians, and they call themselves a fusion band. Fabulous jazz artists. You know, Ruby, if we can do one thing well, we can do a lot of things well, and that's
oh
what
yes.
I know. You sent me these questions, and it's boy, this phone is driving me crazy. That this thing that I want to leave with my people.
Mm-hmm.
Do not believe anything that comes across the TV that says it is news. It is not. It is what some wealthy person who owns the news
Mm-hmm.
has massaged and rearranged the news so that they can continue to make money on us. We're like food for these very rich people. They don't give a doggone about us, about our children. How in the world is it? Here we are supposed to be 15% of the population of the United States, and we know that ain't true. But anyhow, then why are we then 70% of the individuals that are in prison?
Yeah.
We're in prison because prisons make money for white people. You don't read anything, you don't see anything that talks about you, the person who went through the things that you, Ruby, talks about. No, they're talking about got some little skinny, flat behind white girl reading the news as if she knows what she's talking about, teeth capped, hair blonde up and stuff. And We're standing on the outside looking at this crap. It is not news. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that's manufactured to keep you in your place.
Oh yes.
Do not believe anything. Now, I'm telling you, there's some things that you have enough. We're very intelligent people. We
Mm-hmm.
can extract from the news what we know is something that we can use. But
Mm-hmm.
by and large, anything that comes across the airlines, the airwaves, you will know it
Mm-hmm.
is not real news.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that they probably just couldn't hide and couldn't
Mm-hmm.
keep it from you. But
Right.
think for yourself.
Yes.
Extract what you want that can help you.
Mm-hmm.
Think black, live black, talk black, be black.
Right.
And that's the only way
That is
we're
the
going
kind
to
of
get a,
information we need. See, we need
really.
that constant information. As the, if like, the same, I try to make the examples. I always try to give examples when I come on this show about how we can apply that what we know that would help others who don't know. Because believe me, much of what we see, I wrote the book, Betty, Verbal Healing. And I
Yes.
talk
Mm-hmm.
about much of how we
You've
define
written a lot of
ourselves.
books, Ruby. I don't
Yeah.
know when you found the
Yeah.
time. You don't
Well,
must
you
you don't
have to,
sleep at
you
night.
kind of, one of the things is we are our worst enemy, stuff like that. We say black people don't stick together. Oh, so that
That's not true.
comes from somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes from the brainwashing and indoctrination that has happened over the 200 years we've been here. And if we don't understand that, we will begin to think that we are somehow different. We don't want, because I've heard the phrase, well, we apparently because we don't have businesses anymore, we don't want anything. Well, we know we had more businesses right out of slavery than we do now. So it was an effort on somebody's part to eliminate that. It wasn't ours. Any human being would want something. So if you see us behind in most things and everything, gotta be a reason. And until folks like yourself who will define that reason, who will identify that reason, and then come up with solutions or attempt solution to try to correct that reason, then we'll not going to get anywhere, but continue to criticize ourselves, continue to believe that we are less than, continue to follow whatever someone else have dictated us to follow, But Celine Walker, thank you for telling you. She said, thank you, Miss Ruth, for telling the truth. See, I just appreciate these folks who call in and at least give me kudos for trying to tell the truth. I'm trying to tell it like it is. I disseminate information, that which I know is fact. Told someone what we're involved with is non-negotiable and it's just non-debatable. Because there's no debate that we were not enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
That there's no debate that we were not discriminated against. There was no debate that we. So those things are undebatable. So I don't even want to go into debating. I just disseminate information. Least we suffer, or least we perish. Now that's scripture. I forgot which one it is right now, but that's scripture. Betty Dobson, I gotta have you on again. Give us give us some information again about where you're going to your Simultep, the affair that they are having in
Okay.
November.
36 years, CMOTAP, the
Mm-hmm.
Committee to Eliminate Media Offensive to African People. We have been confronting racist media. We were able to run a few racists off the radio, off TV. We have been successful in getting those individuals that Sister Ruby call experts. We bring them before our audience as often as we possibly can because they might not be experts, but they sure have done well
Oh
in
yes.
terms of understanding what we need and
Mm-hmm.
what we must do to,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to free ourselves. White folks will not free us. We got to free ourselves. So,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as we know that and understand that, then we will know that this is the only way that we're going to be free. Love yourself. Love your family and friends. Yeah, many of them aren't lovable. Some of them mine. Please, gosh, where'd they come from? But these are my people, and they have suffered. They are who they are because of the circumstances of their
Exactly.
life and this thing they call white supremacy. Supreme people don't blow up hospitals, don't
Mm-hmm.
murder innocent people, don't try to keep their foot on your neck. So think black, and you're intelligent. Use
Mm-hmm.
your intelligence to
Mm-hmm.
elevate who you are. I ain't telling you to hate nobody. You don't
No,
have time for hate.
don't have
You
time
have
for
time
hate.
for love.
Just time for
So,
love.
Ruby,
That's for
thank you
sure.
for having me on. Appreciate it. And I congratulate you. Um, you are unapologetic. I don't see you as an amateur because I've been with you enough to know you're anything but an amateur. But
Well,
it's a
thank
good
you, Betty.
title.
Coming from
It's a
you,
good title.
I can
And I'm
sleep
glad you're
tonight.
using it. So,
And you know, I'm
you,
having Dr. Rose on as soon as possible. And I'm going to have, there was something, one else next week I'm have the young man on, the mental health young man, the brother of, I had his name somewhere, but I don't have it now, Kenyatta. And you know, you all who've been watching my show with my co-host, you know, he's all that in a bag of chips, Brother Kenyatta. So I'm just so pleased that all of you just came in and listened. And I thank God for this opportunity. Thank Norm for the privilege of hosting me here. And I want you all to know that with my group here who try to keep me on track, they are terrific. They are terrific. And again, if you all really are enjoying this show now, I'm telling you, I'm giving you some. My producer just came again and said, "Call it out. Where is it? Um, BKS1 Radio, Facebook or YouTube, Cash App, $ Ruby Shivers, Zelle, Ruby Shivers 158 at gmail.com. You know, we appreciate anything you do. You know, we really do. And we recognize you. Sure do. I
I
love
like
you
what you're
all.
doing, Ruby. I really do. Because you're not just saying, well, I'll just retire to the rocking chair. Mm-mm.
No, no,
No,
no.
you saying I'm gonna kick up some dust.
Oh yes, God gives me the
And
strength.
yeah, please,
Betty, I meant to
that's what
tell
we
you.
have to do.
Yeah, I got to
Hmm?
say this very quickly. We just established a homeschooling. You know, we got the idea. I've got to write Governor DeSantis down there in Florida and thank him for the opportunity, for not the opportunity, for awakening him. He talking about the woke generation. He awakened us. So we're
He's full of.
organizing. We are created a homeschooling for our little K through 6 right now, and they come every Saturday from now it's from Sunday from 12 to 1, just to get some information and study of African and themselves history. I'm suggesting to all black people, let's do that. Let's get our kids while they're very young into the home before they leave the home. That's when they go out into the world and they don't get anything, or they get what Governor DeSantis is trying to put into their heads. We will have told them the truth already. So I'm just so pleased to have my little ones come every Saturday. They're learning a little bit about African history. Thank God for this
Wonderful,
opportunity.
wonderful.
Betty,
Mhm.
we're going to leave this place. I've enjoyed so much. I've learned so much from you. I always do. So
I
thank
want you at
God
my
for you.
table on the 18th too, Ruby,
We'll be
so that I
there.
can introduce you. The 18th at the Family Life Center.
We'll be there.
That's the 18th of November, so you got plenty of time.
We'll be there.
And you come, bring your family and your friends, and then I can tell people this is my friend, the unapologetic amateur
I
that's
heard that.
changing the world, making black folks know who they are and what they ain't, isn't, are. Okay,
Praise
okay.
God. Thank you.
Yes.
Bye bye,
Take
everybody.
care. Take care. Be good. Be black. Be safe.
Yeah.